Hi, this is the video for Daf Kaf Daled, page 24 of Masechet Avodah Zarah. I'm Josh Kulp for Daf Shevui, coming to you from the Conservative Yeshiva in Jerusalem. This is going to be the last time that we do a video at the end of the week. We're going to slightly switch around the formats, and from now on the videos will be coming out on Sunday, and I'll try to do a little bit of a preview of what's going to be on the daf, where we're standing. We'll probably stick closer to the pshat, the simple reading of the Gemara, and do a little bit less with iyun, going deeply into one issue. If you're sort of deeply disappointed about that, then maybe write to me. If I get enough people, then maybe I'll make 2 videos. But I'm busy here at the yeshiva, teaching a ton, writing a ton, so have some mercy on me. I wanted to talk briefly about the notion of non-Jews, goyim, pagans, Gentiles, however you call them, bringing sacrifices to the temple in Jerusalem. There's really a whole polemic in this sugya, and it appears elsewhere in the Talmud, against non-Jews bringing offerings to the temple. And you could sense, as you're reading through the daf, that while the Midrash speak to the children of Israel, and the children of Israel shall take korbanot, sacrifices, and non-Jews shall not, and also all this rhetoric about the fear of bestiality is probably coming in a background where non-Jews quite simply did frequently bring offerings to the temple. We find that throughout Jewish history. It's already there in the Tanakh. You can see ample quotes about pagans bringing offerings to the temple, non-Jews bringing offerings to the temple. I have a quote here I found from the 3rd book of Maccabees, where in chapter 1, verses 6 through 10, here Ptolemy, the Greek, not Roman, ruler, decides to visit the neighboring cities and encouraging them. And he says, the verse 8 reads, "Since the Jews had sent some of their council and elders to greet him, to bring him gifts of welcome and to congratulate him on what had happened, he was all the more eager to visit them as soon as possible. After he had arrived in Jerusalem, he offered sacrifices to the supreme God and made thank offerings and did what was fitting for the holy place." So here you have a Greek governor or down in Egypt who brings sacrifices to the temple. Josephus discusses it. There are references in the New Testament, and there are references in rabbinic literature already in the Mishnah about, for instance, the Queen Helena bringing sacrifices. You can find them quite easy, and it makes sense in the milieu in which the Jewish temple existed in the first centuries CE, late centuries BCE, in the early Common Era. Paganism, by its very nature, dictates that pagans can worship in whatever temples they want, in multiple temples, and can believe in many gods. Why shouldn't they admire the Jews, admire the Israelites, admire their temple, for whatever reason they may have admired it, and come and offered sacrifices there? It was just considered simply the polite thing to do when you were in Jerusalem, especially if you were a wealthy person, if you were religious. There is something nice in that sense about paganism. It's plurality. It's ability of a person to worship in all different places. I am not advocating paganism. I could talk about the detriments of paganism, the problems with it, the philosophical problems, some perhaps the moral problems. But for now, let's chalk in praise of paganism that Jews, non-Jews alike, can offer sacrifices in the temple. There was even a courtyard of the non-Jews in the temple. And it's simply the reality in which the temple existed while it still stood. Rabbis live in a different milieu. They live after this. They have different relationships with non-Jews than the Jews in the temple did. It's a complicated question. But certainly when we look historically, we can find ample evidence that many, many pagans would have attended the temple. They couldn't have gone anywhere they wanted, but neither Jews could go wherever they wanted. There were restrictions on Israelites, restrictions on women, restrictions on non-pure people, impure people, all sorts of restrictions, and the Gentiles would have had to live with those restrictions as well.